guys, Zero here. Welcome to Learning C# Part 2. Today we'll work on developing a console application using the information we've previously learned in the last video and adding it to information that we'll learn today. The console application project we will learn today will allow our user to input numbers into a prompt, select a mathematical operation to add, subtract, multiply, or divide their input numbers, and then we will return the result in the console window. We're essentially building a simplified calculator using a console window. The first concepts we'll need to learn that differentiate from the previous video are reading and writing data to and from the terminal window. To write data to the terminal window, we use a class called console and access its method writeLine, which takes a string as an argument. To read data from the console, we can again use the console class, but use the readLine method instead. You can also use the clear method to clear out the console window. As you can see here in our project, we have our static void main inside of our class program inside of our namespace learning C# project number 1. Now you can see inside of void main, we have our class console with our method writeLine and its given argument hello world. If we debug our project, we can see that this outputs hello world into the console. We'll get back to this later on in the project. Our first step to creating our calculator application will be to write our operator methods. So to start, I'll start with multiply, and then I'll write divide, summate, and subtract. So we'll create public static float methods with 2 float arguments. And the reason we use static is because we'll be referencing these methods from our static void main. You cannot reference non-static objects from a static method. So as you can see here, we have an error with our method multiply because not all code paths return a value. That is because we have no return line. You need to return a value if you have a function. If you're not returning a value, that is when you use the void modifier. Void essentially means it has no return. So we'll return an object called value. Now we have not defined our value yet, so we'll define a new value here, float value, and we'll give it a default value of 0 to prevent errors in the future. Now, we're going to learn something new here. This is called a try statement. Try statements are good for dynamic error handling. It allows us to write methods without having to write error handling for every single line of code. So basically, if there's any error inside of the try statement, it'll instead execute the catch statement. So we can catch our exception EX, and then we can write the exception to the console by using the console class and the writeLine method, and then converting the exception to a string. That'll give us our basic definition of the exception. Now we can just say the value is equal A times B, and that method is done. Now we'll write the other 3 methods, or we can just copy and paste for faster programming. Now we can just change these. And now we can begin writing the logic for our program. So we'll start off by asking the user please enter the first number. Then we'll declare our variables. and our operator. And we'll give them all default values just to prevent any errors in the future. And we'll write another try statement. And I'll just steal that from here. And we can start with our mathematical logic. So we can say x value is equal to float.parse. That'll parse the console's next line into a float. And if somebody enters per se a character or something that's not a number, we'll return a catch exception instead. Then we'll ask the user, please enter the operator plus, minus, multiply, or divide. We'll set OP to console.nextLine, read line. And then we'll ask for the final number. And we'll set y value Now we can use a switch statement, which will switch between dynamic variables. In this case, our dynamic variable is the operator. So we'll switch between the operator, and then we'll write cases. So for case plus, we will use console.writeLine result summate xval yval and break the case. Now we'll just create another case for each operator. Minus, subtract, divide, and multiply. And now our console application is essentially finished. We can now test our console application by clicking the debug button again, entering a number, 5. I'll use addition, and then I'll enter 5 again, and the result's 10. I'll just go ahead and test a few different scenarios. 144 divided by 12. And 8 times 14. I don't believe our division one worked correctly. There we go. And so everything works correctly as expected. There obviously is a lot of oversight in this project and things that can be more efficient. You could probably write all these methods into one big math method if you wanted to, or you could create your own math class. And this could be done a little neater, and we could also use lenQ and expression to clean up the input a little, but we're not going to get into that much depth on our first project. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down in the comment section below, and have a good evening.